everyone, and welcome to our September Hope session. I am Heidi Parker. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Community Initiatives Manager here at the Arts and Healing Initiative, and I am your Zoom host today. This program is presented as part of our free Hope series, Healing Online for People Everywhere, which we created to support the resilience of our global community through social emotional arts. Each workshop offers a supportive space for connection, healing, and empowerment as we navigate the changes in our world. If you have previously attended a Hope session, welcome back. If you are new, thank you for joining today. We're grateful you are all here to create, learn, and grow together as a community. Today's program is in a meeting format, so please keep yourself muted until prompted otherwise. We are recording today's session in speaker view, and we do edit out any reflection times. That is shared on our YouTube channel, and you are welcome to leave your cameras on as you feel comfortable, as we'd love for you to actively participate. Our session today is scheduled for an hour and a half, and feel free to add questions in the chat as they arise, or you can use the raise hand function. Before we begin, we would like to start by acknowledging the Tongva Nation, on whose land the city of Los Angeles, where we are based, rests today. We hold respect and gratitude for the Tongva people who still consider themselves the caretakers of this land. By their example, we are reminded of our responsibility to our planet and to one another. So let's take a moment in our own way to honor the indigenous communities of past and present on whose land you are joining from today, and feel free to honor them in the chat as well. I would like to welcome today's presenter. Kate Burns is a poet, a published author, a creative arts healing workshop facilitator. She is the creator of the Emotional Care Kit, a tool that combines several creative arts healing modalities to provide on-demand help for individuals struggling with depression, self-harm, suicidal ideation, anxiety, and low self-esteem. Through her company, Create and Heal, she strives to share the healing power of poetry with as many trauma survivors as possible. And I will turn it over to Kate. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Hi, thank you all for coming today. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see this? Sorry. Awesome. So thank you for coming today. We are going to be making our own emotional care kit, which is something that I created over the course of my own healing journey. And I'll share the story with you of how that came into being. But first, a little bit more about me. So I consider myself a poet, survivor, mental health advocate. I am a UCLA Arts and Healing Certificate holder when they were still connected to UCLA. Disciple of Dr. Gabor Mate, and the creator of the Emotional Care Kits. So a little bit about my story to understand how the Emotional Care Kit came into being. I struggled a lot with childhood trauma in my early years. I was the scapegoated child in an extremely religious household. So from a very young age, I was internalizing beliefs about my own identity and the world around me that were extremely detrimental to maintaining positive mental health. Beliefs such as, I am inherently bad, I am not wanted, this world is dangerous, I am not safe, really setting me up for a difficult journey in life, which was exacerbated then by experiencing sexual and betrayal trauma in several forms in my teenage years and early adulthood. Unfortunately, also growing up in the household that I did, it was very much a do not show your feelings. Nobody wants to deal with you when you're struggling, having negative emotions. If you're angry, if you're sad, go deal with it by yourself. Come back into the fold, into the community when you're happy and easy to deal with. So I wasn't equipped with the tools to even seek out help. I took on a very fake it till you make it, hope it goes away, and just do the best you can approach. which, as I'm sure we all know, doesn't ever really work for anybody. They can pretend it does for a while, but it catches up with you. So I had undiagnosed depression for most of my 20s. I was very much running away from everything, just trying to pretend like everything was okay when it really wasn't. And I struggled with suicidal ideation for about 8 years of my life. Um, Thankfully, I finally got to a point in my journey where it was make or break it. I realized I needed to reach out, I needed to ask for help, but I needed to be honest with somebody about what was going on inside my head and inside my body at all times. All of the things that I wasn't telling anyone, trying to pretend like everything was okay. So I started going to therapy. My very first step in my healing journey was actually poetry, though. Being able to first admit to myself that I wasn't okay was a really powerful step. And I'm a huge proponent of poetry for that because it's a indirect way to approach the truth. Sometimes it's more difficult to face, hard truths head on. And poetry is a way of exploring that in a way that feels softer, in a way that feels safer. Went to therapy, approached journaling, and finally, on my healing journey, I created what I now refer to as the emotional care kits. Again, due to, although on my healing journey, things started to get better, and I started to realize that a lot of the internalized beliefs I held weren't based on any fact or foundation, especially at the very beginning, that didn't exactly change, that they were still operating on my subconscious to quite a degree, um, and feeling like a burden and feeling like nobody deserved to have their day ruined by my own struggles made it really difficult to reach out to help in moments when I really needed it. And so creating the emotional care kit just to get me through those moments until I could collect myself enough to recognize, no, I'm worthy of help. No, I can reach out to help. There are people in my life who want to help me. But there were so many layers of unworthiness and feeling like a burden I had to battle through first. And the emotional care kit really helped me battle through those. So, with that being said, so you have an understanding of how the emotional care kit came to be. On our agenda for today, we're going to explore what exactly is an emotional care kit. Now that you know how it exists and why it exists, let's explore what it is. And then we'll go about how to create an emotional care kit. I will give you time to create yours. We'll go over things to include inside of your kit, and we'll write a letter to our future selves. And I'll take you through step-by-step process, what that letter entails and what it should look like. And then after we end recording, there will be time for sharing and offering support. And I always like to include the sharing and the support, because obviously the person who's sharing, they're taking on that role, but it really is a joint community effort. If one person is sharing, the rest of us are holding space and we're providing support. And even if that support ends at just holding that space, it's a powerful give and take. It's never just the one person who's sharing involved in that. All right, so I'd like to actually turn these questions over to you, because the emotional care kit was inspired by a first aid kit. So, why do you think first aid kits were created? What purpose do they serve? So, use your own knowledge and experience with first aid kits. Go ahead and throw it up in the chat. Why you imagine they were first created and what purpose they serve. Awesome. Healing physical wounds. Somebody mentioned they were created for the Army. Portable. Preparation for emergency. Hold off further damage. Mobile. Amazing. Something quick. All right. Yes, collect together the most needed materials and easy to access when needed. Respond quickly to a need, something that's easy to use, something that's accessible. So we're hearing a lot of the same things, right? A first aid kit is something that you can have right on hand in the moment you need it, that'll have the things you imagine you would need for a variety of different physical injuries and or ailments. First aid kits tend to include bandages, neosporin, scissors, Advil, um, maybe something to take the temperature with. So things like that, everything needed for an emergency and an immediate response. So taking that into consideration, I think we could all agree first aid kits are not necessarily a replacement for a hospital, a doctor, or any further medical treatment. However, they are useful, important, and good to have nearby just in case. So, with that being said, emotional care kits, similarly, they were created for much of the same reasons, just taking into account instead of physical injuries and ailments, mental and emotional injuries and ailments. So, exactly what everyone was posting in the chat, something to have right on hand in an emergency, something that's accessible, something that's portable, something that's easy to use. You can respond quickly to a need, collect together the most needed materials, and have easy to access. So when somebody was creating a first aid kit, they had to imagine what injuries somebody might be facing and then put in the items that they would need in response to those injuries. So, in much the same way, imagining exactly what emotional and mental struggles you'll be facing and compiling that together into a kit that is easy to use, portable, easily accessible, and right there when you need it. And so the purpose that they serve is to speak directly to what's going on inside of you. Because as I mentioned previously, I am very much a disciple of Dr. Gabor Mate. And if you have not heard of Dr. Gabor Mate, I highly recommend checking out any of his literature. He is a world renowned therapist, psychologist, and a lot of his research surrounds trauma. And his definition of trauma is the one that most aligns with my beliefs around it, which is that trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. And he also very famously said, I can pretty much tell you from the way that they speak and feel about themselves and the health conditions they have, the type of childhood they had. And what I like most about that quote and why I wanted to include it is this idea of the way they speak and feel about themselves, really tying into trauma is what happens inside of you. So if trauma is what happens inside of you, and it's very much related to the way you speak and feel about yourself, then we can approach trauma and trauma healing by diving straight into how do we change the way you speak to and feel about yourself, feel about how you show up in situations, how you talk to yourself when things get hard, how you talk to yourself when you're facing a problem. And that's what I really am approaching in the emotional care kits. So just like a first aid kit is not in any way a replacement for a doctor or a hospital, emotional care kits are not a replacement for counseling or the opinion of a medical professional or maybe necessary medication. That is not at all what they are. But they still can be just as helpful as a first aid kit in the fact that they can help you practice engaging in self love, self care, and self regulation. They can provide you with the tools to feel, validate, and move through difficult emotions. And they can encourage you to practice speaking to yourself with compassion and kindness. And especially this idea of feeling, validating, and moving through difficult emotions. I approach these things. I recognize that everything is a skill and skills require practice. It's not, some of us aren't naturally born just able to process our emotions better. That was a skill we were taught from a young age by an adult who was able to process their own emotions in a healthy way. So some people have had many more years to practice this skill, and therefore they seem naturally good at it, but no one's naturally good. It's just a matter of how much time you've had to practice and what you've had modeled for you. And so bringing that into play, why emotional care kits do make such a difference, it really goes back to just the same thing we learned in school. It's the students who regularly turn in their homework tend to do better on tests and get higher grades because those who practice improve. If you're not doing the homework, if you're not studying, the information's not going to be there. It's not going to be easy to access. So you can have all the knowledge in the world. You can read all of the books about, how to love yourself and how to be kind to yourself and how to approach yourself with compassion and love and care. But if you're not putting that into practice on a consistent basis, that knowledge is next to useless. You know how to do it, but you're not putting it into play. And so the emotional care kits give you a tool in order to practice that on a consistent basis, especially because they're small, easy to access. And if you place them nearby where you can just grab it in the moment that you're experiencing a difficult emotion, it'll take you through step by step. All right. And so there are two parts to your kits. The first part is the box, which is what you're going to see 90% of the time. This is mine. I'm going to use it as an example. Yours does not have to look like this. This is just what I created. It's a visual reminder of your healing and should elicit positive emotions. So this is what elicited positive emotions for me because I was struggling with such intense negative emotions when I created this kit. Really, really intense depression, suicidal ideation, self-harm. I wrote on my box in case of emergency. Over the years, as my mental health has drastically improved, I've debated whether or not I should change the cover and make it more, make it say something that's more in alignment with how often I use it now, just for lesser emotional difficulties, but just anytime I need the reminder. But I've kept it this way because I really like and appreciate the reminder of how far I've come in my healing journey. And any moment where I find myself slipping backwards or I'm upset with how I showed up and I get into my head about, oh, I thought you were better than this. Look how far you've come. I can't believe this is happening again. This is such a good reminder of like, okay, maybe I'm not perfect. I am a flawed human being, but remember where you used to be. And because that's such a positive feeling for me, I've kept it the same. And then the contents inside of the kit, that's the second part. So the contents inside are varied, but they are specific to your unique healing journey. That's the best thing about an emotional care kit. It's specific to you and what you need. So in my emotional care kit, I have a letter that I tell myself to read first. I have photos of me and my best friend. And then just getting a little bit into it, letters for certain emotions that I experience, poems, a scent, my favorite scent that's very calming, just everything that would be very good memories, poems, reminders, affirmations, things like that. And everything in your kit is meant to be helpful, validating, compassionate, forgiving, and hopeful. You should also elicit very positive emotions. So the creation of your kit, as we're going to go into creating your kit in this workshop, here's some things I want you to think about while you're creating it. What colors bring you peace, make you smile, or make you feel safe? And what images bring you peace, make you smile, or make you feel safe? I chose more natural images because that to me reminds me of safety, flowers, birds, just sweet things that remind me of childhood. And then what words need to be on your box to remind you to use it when you're struggling mentally or emotionally? So I put in case of emergency because for me, it definitely felt like I was turning to this in the lowest moments when it really did feel like an emergency. But what language would you use as a reminder for when to use these moments for the mental and emotional struggles that you personally experience? And then just a reminder, this is for you in your lowest moments. So create with him or her in mind, with compassion and understanding, thinking about you when you are at your lowest, struggling the most, life seems the most difficult. What do you need to say to him or her to get him or her open this box? All right. And with that being said, I'm going to give all of you about 30 minutes to start working with the materials. Heidi told me that everybody was informed in advance to bring a box and some crafting, nice paper, pens, scissors. So keeping all of that in mind, I want you to go ahead and craft your box for your emotional care kit right now. I encourage you to, everyone's muted, so go ahead and pick your favorite playlist, music that inspires you, makes you feel playful, at peace, happy, and joyful while you're creating this box. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to either unmute yourself or throw it up in the chat. All right, if you are still working on your box, if you want to just set that to the side or finish up what you might be doing in this moment, the last cut or gluing, and then go ahead and set that to the side just for now. Give just another minute. Because we're going to talk about what we should include inside of your kits. Again, the power in these kits, first aid kits tend to look the same no matter what household you find them in. They'll have pretty much the exact same things, but mental and emotional struggles are so unique and so personalized. So the power in these kits is you can really personalize it to what you struggle with. If you've already done the work to explore, any toxic or limiting negative beliefs that you hold due to past trauma or what you were raised in childhood, any work you've already done and the knowledge and awareness you have of yourself, where you're at, and what you struggle with can really inform what you put inside of your kids. So, things that we would include inside of the emotional care kit: letters to future you who's struggling with various negative emotions. We'll actually be doing an activity for one such letter in just a little bit. But this is a really, really powerful, not only writing exercise, but to put it in your kit and to be able to come back and read these letters. Any emotions you really struggle with, emotions that trigger things for you, that make it difficult for you to process and work through it in the ways you want to and aspire to, in healthy ways that lead to resolution rather than creating more conflict. For some, that might be anger. For some, that might be grief. Everybody struggles with different emotions. So again, bringing your understanding of yourself and the work you've already done into the creation of this kit is just going to make it that much more helpful in the future when you need it. Another thing you can include in your kit: letters from trusted loved ones, especially if you are someone who struggles with any self-harm tendencies or suicidal ideation. Creating that, going to loved ones that you can trust, that love you and have your best interest at heart, not just going to every acquaintance you have, but people you really truly trust and know love you and care about you, and sharing to the extent that you're comfortable the struggles that you're facing and asking for just a letter of support, of care, of compassion. Those can be really powerful to read when you're experiencing those emotions. Another one would be list of happy memories from the past year or maybe even several years, especially if in your low moments you tend to assume the worst and think life is difficult, it never gets better, I'll never feel happy again. These black and white, all or nothing thoughts that, when we're doing well sound so laughable, but when we're not doing well, can latch on and sink their claws into our minds and our hearts and really get us to start believe that maybe there's some truth there, even when there isn't. So creating that list of happy memories of, oh yeah, life isn't always difficult. It isn't always awful. This is my proof that I have. A list of I am affirmations, reminding yourself, I am worthy, I am lovable, I am capable, and anything else that speaks directly to the struggles that you face. And then suggestions for things to attempt once you're finished going through your emotional care kit. So when I was really struggling at my lowest, when I first created my emotional care kit, this suggestion list was extremely small things. My depression was so intense that it was like, hey, walk over to the bathroom and brush your teeth. Go drink a glass of water. Go open the blinds. Look at the sun if it's shining, or look at the moon, look at the stars. Open up a little bit. Maybe if you're feeling up to it, take a 5-minute walk outside. If the negative experiences and emotions you're struggling with aren't so intense, you might say, hey, after going through your whole emotional care kit, call up a friend, go see if they are free, meet up and have a coffee, or go for a nice, 20, 25-minute walk, put on your favorite playlist. So tailor your suggestions to things that you think you would be capable of after you finish going through your emotional care kit. And that would help you just form the next steps of going about your day in a more positive way. Another few recommendations, you can include favorite quotes or poems. I have ripped out far too many pages of poetry books and included them in my emotional care kit. But I've personally found, as somebody who responds very positively to language, that having so many very powerfully positive poems and positive words, that eventually I get reading so much of them that it does completely just change my brain chemistry, and I start to really feel very differently. If language isn't what does it for you, then maybe other things you might want to include are photos of you with people that you love, or photos in moments that bring back really powerful feelings of joy or pride. Anything that maybe you've created that sparks joy. If you're an artist, whether that's painting or multimedia, if there's something you've created that will fit inside the box, or you can write down a reminder to yourself, hey, go look at this painting you created that's, hanging up in the hallway. Any special crystals, stones, or dried flowers that hold meaning to you, or even if they don't hold meaning, they just elicit a positive response in your body. Maybe a mixtape of your favorite music, or if you're not that old school, just a little note reminding you to listen to a specific playlist that you can curate on your own time in a moment when you're feeling much more positive and doing much better mentally, to create that for yourself when you're experiencing low moments. You can also place special birthday cards or postcards that you receive from loved ones in your kit, which I found to be really great, because I have all these birthday cards over the past years that mean so much to me. And I'm like, what do I do with them? And so I picked out a few of them where people placed really special, meaningful notes. And now they're in my kit, and I see them on a regular basis. Whereas if I just kept them in my own little, birthday card stack, I'd probably look at them once every few years. So those are some things, some recommendations of what you can include in your kit. And again, tailor it to what you need. If you know that you're like, I'm going to turn to this kit when I'm struggling with my anger, that's, on this healing journey, that's the one that gets me the most. I'm making this kit to help me with my anger. Tailor it specifically to that. This is for you in the moments where you're struggling mentally and emotionally. All right, so let's go ahead and practice writing that letter to your future self who is struggling with an emotion. So I've put up a list here of some pretty common negative emotions. Just take a moment to look it over, and choose one that you feel comfortable working with today. If the emotion you want to work with is not on here, you can absolutely work with your own emotion. I just gave this list just in case off the top of your head, it's more difficult to think of. So just take a quick moment. So like I said, we're going to choose one negative emotion. I recommend the one you struggle with or experience the most. But if you're not comfortable working with that one today, maybe a lesser, a secondary emotion. And you're going to write a letter to your future self when you're experiencing this emotion. When I was very early in my healing journey, almost laughable to think about it now, I thought the goal of healing was to get to the point where I'm not experiencing these negative emotions anymore. And it was such a turning point when I realized, no, I'm always going to experience them. It's how I handle them that's going to change. So that really shifted my thinking. And so already knowing, no, future Kate is going to be angry and future Kate is going to feel excluded. She's going to feel overwhelmed. She'll experience grief. There will be difficult emotions ahead. Let me think of her right now in this moment and speak directly to her. And that's what we're going to be doing in this writing exercise. So when you write this letter to your future self who's going to experiencing this difficult negative emotion, make sure that you're validating your emotional experience. So the goal of this letter is not to invalidate, to not to say, hey, stop feeling this way. It's not fun. I don't like it. Don't do it. Validating your emotional experience. It's okay that you feel this way. It makes sense that you feel this way. And remember to come from a place of love, compassion, understanding, and kindness. This is not the time to be shaming your future self, blaming, guilting, judging, or criticizing. When I first did this exercise, I was blown away at how difficult it was for me to write this letter because of how instinctual placing blame and criticizing and judging myself for experiencing these emotions was. And it was such a practice to shift my way of thinking and my language into I see you, I hear you, I love you. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. And for me, I think the writing really helps because I can take time to think about what I'm going to write before writing it, whereas the thoughts will just come. So, future me experiencing this emotion might forget, especially when I'm newer to the practice. Hey, we're not judging ourselves anymore. We're not criticizing. We're not shaming. But I've already written this letter where I practiced it. So I can read it and read it and read it and hopefully rewire new neurons in my brain so that they're connecting in different ways. And then also in this letter, go ahead and get specific. So, again, we'll also be speaking directly to the stories you tell yourself in your head when you're experiencing this emotion. And remember, this letter is only for you. So, if there's any embarrassment around the stories you tell yourself, nobody else is ever going to read this letter but you. I know when I was very early on in my healing journey, the stories I would tell myself were so cruel and so extreme. The stories were things like, no one's ever going to love you because there's not a single thing about you to love. And I needed to speak directly to that because that was the only way to heal from that. I couldn't shy away from that story. I couldn't pretend like that wasn't my story. I had to be able to face it, admit it, and counter it in this letter. And that's going to be really powerful. So, you know, the stories that your head tells you when you're experiencing the difficult emotions. So, try to speak directly to that because this is who you're always talking to. I put a picture of little me up there, but it's little you. When you shame and guilt and judge, you're doing that to your 2-year-old self, your 4-year-old self, your 7-year-old self, your 14-year-old self, your 25-year-old self, your 36-year-old self, every iteration of you that has ever existed. When you shame and blame and criticize and judge, you're doing that to every version, even the little baby you. And I think that's one thing where it's like no adult can imagine doing that to a child, and yet we're doing that to our inner child. So, leaving you with this quote before we get on to practice, one of the best guides to how to be self-loving is to give ourselves the love we are often dreaming about receiving from others. Bell Hooks is an incredible author. If you haven't read her book, All About Love, I highly recommend it. But also, if you find it hard to be loving towards yourself, just imagine the kind of love you're probably already giving to everybody else because that's the love you're hoping to receive. So if you need any examples, if you already started, that's amazing. But just in case, if you need any examples, if this really is a whole new concept to you of being kind and compassionate, understanding and validating to yourself, you can say things like, I'm sorry you're experiencing so much pain. Go ahead and feel how you feel for as long as you need. I'll be here for you whenever you're ready. I understand why you feel this way. It's not wrong or bad. It makes sense. Again, taking away the judgment. So when you tell your future self it's not wrong or bad to feel the way you feel, you're taking away the judgment. And then just giving yourself a reminder you deserve loving kindness always. So these are examples of the kinds of phrases and lines of thought to include when writing this letter to your future self. All right, so I'm going to give everybody about 10 minutes to go ahead and write just one letter. I have included in my kit several letters to several different emotions, but for time's sake today during this workshop, pick one emotion that you struggle with and write this letter to your future self who's dealing with this emotion, remembering to validate, to be compassionate, understanding, loving, gentle, and kind, and forgiving. And if anybody has any questions, again, feel free to unmute yourself or throw them up in the chat. If you need to see a previous slide, also just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to give you guys the next 10 minutes to write. Perfect. And just go ahead and finish up your thought, complete your sentence. And another reason I advocate for emotional care kit is such a powerful tool, especially those struggling with depression, even low grade depression, is that in those moments when your mind is attacking you, changing your thoughts to be more loving and kind and compassionate and understanding is so much more difficult than convincing your body to just walk over and grab a box, take off the lid, start looking through it. The physical aspect to the box itself, I think, is where it's like real power lies in how simple it is. Because when you're really struggling, more complexity does not make things better. So yeah, that's just another reason I think that this box is so powerful in its simplicity. So how was that experience, either creating the box or writing that letter? Go ahead and share in the chat how that experience was for you. Amazing. Yes, very emotionally evocative. I would completely agree. Fun, powerful, empowering, supportive, and connecting. Ooh, creating the box was revealing. Interesting. Jennifer, if you'd like to expand on that, I'm very curious to hear more. Energizing. The papers and the music made you happy. Yeah, that's why everybody has a different type and genre of music that they like to put on when they're creating. So I think it's so much more powerful, especially since we're all muted. We're all in our homes coming together just in this virtual space to allow you to really tailor that to what works best for you. I love that. Empowering to know that I have many resources to support myself. Absolutely. Getting specific. Yes, as specific as possible. That's what's going to help the most. Therapeutic. Love. Thank you so much. I appreciate the honesty. Reluctant to write at first, but after a few sentences, it flowed. Sometimes at the very beginning, it can be difficult, but I love that you continued with it and found the flow. Oh, I love that. You were ready to write the letter, thought it would be harder than it was. It's amazing. Okay, we're gonna continue when we get to more to the sharing part. But yeah, I just wanted to hear how that experience was for everybody. Um, just continuing on before we share, just wanted to talk a little bit more about my company, Create and Heal. So I offer emotional care kit and creative writing workshops for emotional well-being. Right now, I'm working with local trauma centers, addiction centers, helping individuals who are struggling with narcotics addiction, alcohol addiction, etc. I've also worked with mental health and creativity. I work very closely with that company. Again, just offering creative writing workshops for emotional well-being, bringing my emotional care kits to more individuals. I do creative arts healing retreats for women in partnership with Hogomel, also just individually through my own company. I do speaking, have presented at the Edu Wellness Conference, and some more local initiatives for any of you who are local to Los Angeles. I host a monthly all women open mic to support and celebrate women's talents and voices. And I founded a scholarship, the Emerging Female Voices in Poetry Self-Publication Scholarship for young girls, young female poets ages 13 to 18 to get their first book of poetry self-published. So if you are interested in any of that piqued your interest, please feel free to reach out to me. I also offer wellness tips and activities delivered straight to your email every week if you sign up for my weekly newsletter at createandhealkb.com. So yeah, wait, coming back to that. So here's different ways to keep in touch with me. Createandhealkb.com. My email is kateburnspoet@gmail.com, and you can find me on socials at Kate Burns Poets.
Gratitude to Kate for leading us through the emotional care kit process. And thank you to all of you for attending today and staying with us and sharing such an amazing community today. We'd like to extend our appreciation for our donors and the LA Department of Arts and Culture for their support of this series. Please be on the lookout for a follow-up email that we mentioned. That email does have the survey for today's session in it. It also has a survey that's an annual survey that we do. Right now, we are offering a free giveaway of one of our faculty books if you complete that survey by October 5th. So we would love to hear your experiences with Arts and Healing Initiative, what you look forward to for next year so we can best plan our programming. And then we do have a few upcoming trainings. We have additional Hope sessions every month. So those are scheduled through December. And so if this was your first Hope session, they do alternate between modalities and instructors each month, always rooted in stress reduction and resilience building. And so we have a wonderful group of instructors and topics ahead to get us through December. And then also our Beat the Odds trainings are coming up. We have both virtual and in person, our Dance for All as well. And then we'll soon have our 2025 calendar posted. So thank you all so much for staying and just supporting each other. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend.